All right, guys, got another episode today, and I always like to start these episodes off with a little bit of gratitude. So, Tommy, I want to give you a shout out. I've had several people actually hire us, and when they said they want to make content like Tommy, I got to thank you for that because obviously that inspiration's there.
Awesome.
And then Admir, man, I've known you for about, I think, like half a year. You've hosted great events. Everyone only has positive things to say about you guys, so I appreciate you both for coming on today.
It's a pleasure.
It is. Appreciate you having us.
Yeah, so I got a unique question to start. One thing I always find interesting is whenever I do, let's call it self-work, but then work with business coaches, I always try to find like what overlaps. And the one thing I've always seen is community, like not only when it's for your mental health, but also like to succeed in business. And I feel like you two have done a great job of, let's call it, fostering community. Where did that even like desire come from? Like, why did you feel like that was something you would do instead of just being like alone, running your own business and just playing that game?
I guess from the very beginning, I've always been involved in athletics. So growing up, like all my friends would be in sports, and I mean, you only work together as a team. So coming from a soccer background, basketball, baseball, like you got to work together towards a common goal. And I come from a big family too, so it's almost a community in itself. So I like that family aspect. I like that family feel, and I like to be able to help one another out.
And do you feel like selfishly you're better because you have this community too?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you nailed it. I think when you play sports, you learn teamwork, and teamwork makes a dream work. So that's kind of, the same answer I would spit off. And then you can go fast alone, but you can go far together. So that's something else that always stuck to me. And, you, even me now, like you can do a lot on your own, but there's so many opportunities when you network, you meet other people. I mean, JVing and all sorts of things. It all helps. But I think playing sports has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, I remember when I first started my business, I would make these milestone goals when I would call myself like a freelancer. And I remember like the big one was getting like an 8,300 month because it was like 100 a year. And I remember being so burnt and exhausted because I was doing everything alone, no help, like no systems, anything. And I just remember being like, man, like at the moment it felt like failure. I was like, I might need to hire someone who's better than me to teach me. And I remember in my head thinking like, this is a failure moment. And now in hindsight, it's hilarious. Like, obviously, that was the thing that turned things in the right direction. But how have you two been able to find mentorship on your own? So, like, I think if I'm correct, you've both worked with your fathers in business?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Tommy, I kind of want to start with you. How did you guys decide to work together? Because I think a lot of times parents can be people's worst enemy when they start a business, or they can help them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of 5 kids. I'm the oldest boy of those 5 kids. So as I was growing up, I mean, he's teaching me since I was young, like hard work. And then just the businesses he was in allowed me to kind of do some grunt labor. So I always kind of was around him. He was always showing me what to do. He'd always be out mowing the lawn. So it just felt like the right thing to do to work with my dad. And he was always, and also at the same time, he was able to coach all my sporting teams, put us through college by being an entrepreneur. So I felt not obligated, but I felt it was the right thing to do to go home and help my parents out because they'd put me and my brothers and sisters through so much growing up.
And so you said you did go to college?
I did go to college. I went to University of Dayton out here in Ohio, got a finance degree, and then went back. And my dad has owned a home inspection company for 23 years now. So I became a home inspector, knew nothing about it, and just kind of learned from the ground up.
So as you were in college, were you knowing entrepreneurship is the route, or was there a part of you that's like, oh, maybe I'll be this finance bro and dad can do his own thing?
It was never really finance, bro, but it was never really entrepreneurship at the same time. But I studied finance and there was an entrepreneurship program at Dayton. I just knew I was going to go home and work with my dad. So it didn't even feel honestly like entrepreneurship at the time. But then when I saw what my dad was doing, I was like, oh, because he was a home inspector, he didn't have any employees. And whenever he got the phone to ring, was when he would go do jobs. So there was no marketing, there was no networking, there was no nothing. And I was like, oh, I know the only way I can make my salary make sense is I have to go out there and figure it out. So it's like basically starting my own thing under his business. And I learned a lot kind of by just winging it from there.
Yeah, and similarly to you, your dad was similar boat or different?
Well, we came here, didn't speak English, right? So my dad, all he knew was physical labor. So what I saw growing up was just always the hard work. We didn't get to spend much time because he was always working. He'd get home, I'd be out playing basketball or whatever. So growing up wise, we didn't spend so much time, but that respect, seeing him get up at 5 a.m. every day, that instilled hard work in me.
So you both had a male figure that was working, providing,
Absolutely.
and you saw that the whole time.
Dude, 100%.
Yeah.
Till this day, still, he doesn't have to do what he does, but every single day it's the same thing. He wouldn't be who he is, without doing that. So, as a foreign kid, your parents want you to go to school. They want you to be a doctor. They want you to be a lawyer. They want you to get a degree. it just wasn't me. I'm like, I've seen my dad, he started his own business, was always entrepreneurial, was always talking money. And that kind of always stuck with me. So I just sat in class one day and listened to the teacher. I had a sales job already. I was making more money than her. And I said, my dad can't be that pissed.
Yeah.
You know, so it was kind of like, well.
And that's what it was for me. So I had 1 year left when COVID hit, and I saw my teachers in their 40s and 50s move back in with their parents.
Oh,
and
wow.
And I'm just like, and then they go, oh, you guys get A's too. And I'm like, I did not like take that out to you get A's. And so there was this moment where I was like, I got to get out. Like, this is unfathomable. But another question that I wanted to ask is, so you both, let's say, had a positive working male figure that you saw growing up. But one thing I think a lot of young men struggle with is when they may, let's call it, surpass their dad in a moment. Okay. So how did the power dynamic shift for you guys when, like, for you, I would say it's probably like the marketing side of it, right? Yeah. And then you coming in saying like, hey, this is good. I see the work ethic, but there can be systems and smarter work.
100%.
Man, you want to take that one first?
Yeah. So, I mean, he just knew how to work. You know what I mean? He knew how to go and get jobs, network with people and do the work, but he didn't know what best credit cards, business credit, anything like that. So sending me to private school and me learning, you know, the little that I did learn, but knowing how to read, knowing how to write, and all these other things helped his business, which in the end ultimately helped me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine is a lot of the same. So mine was a big mental battle because as I was starting to build my wholesaling company, maybe flipping some houses, I was making way more money than my dad was paying me. And I was working probably 80% in the home inspection business, 20% in the wholesaling business. And I mean, we were making great money. And it just felt like, I mean, I'm doing this for my parents. I'm doing this for that. So I'd go to these meetups and I'd be like, masterminds across the country. And I met this guy named Chris and he was like, well, what are you doing it for? And I was like, well, I want to retire my parents. And same thing, like my dad, he put us through college. He helped us do all these things. And I was like, I want to retire my parents. So the next time I saw him a year later at the same type of mastermind, he goes, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm still home inspecting. He's like, why are you still home inspecting? You're crushing it in real estate. I'm like, well, I want to retire my parents. He's like, all right, riddle me this. If you inspected 1,000 more houses with your dad, would you retire him? And I look at him, I go, no. So then he looks at me, he's like, well, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
And I look at him, I'm like, fuck, you're right. So then I went back and I had to like, I feel like my dad knew the writing was on the wall, but I still felt so bad on the inside. I was like, I'm letting my family down. It's like, who do I think I am to try and like surpass him? And we had the conversation and he goes, Tom, same exact thing that you said. I didn't send you to college. I didn't pay all this money. I didn't work my ass off for you to do the same exact thing that I've always done. Yeah. Once he said that, every worry melted away and I went all in on the real estate business and it just took off from there.
So you haven't been doing inspections lately?
No, haven't done a home inspection in probably 4 years, 4 years.
Yeah. So do you think that was like a defining moment for both of you, kind of feeling like, okay, this is now, because I'm assuming you have a great relationship still.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Same with you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So how did it change after that, where let's say the person who's probably putting the most ROI effort in is now the younger one? Was it still like easy to have conversations with them socially, or was it a thing where you're like, now they can learn from me too? Because I'm assuming like the masterminds and all these online coaching you're in is whole new concepts to your dad's.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. My dad was the type to, even when I first started, before I paid for my first mentorship, I'm like, no, I'm not about to pay somebody. I don't know if this is real or not, but you know, the stuff is true. But yeah, my dad is, you got to work. You got to work. You know, that's the only way you can get ahead. You have to work. No, Dad, systems, processes, hiring people.
Yeah.
Which is very hard to do. Yeah. You know, your first hire, that's tough to do because it's scary.
Yeah, I think I put off getting a VA for like 72 hours. And like, I felt like I was on the most intense game show of my life, those 72 hours, until finally my girlfriend was like, did you call them back or not? And I was like, oh, it's at 3. And then I immediately was like, paid. And then we got it. But did you two struggle to hire? Or let me ask you this. Did your dad hire or no?
No. So the caveat to this is he had, when he made the home inspection company, that was on a one-man show. And then he had the property preservation business. So when 07, 08 happened, he had this, basically got called from a bank and said, hey, can you winterize a house? And he was like, basically like Admir's dad, he's like, I can work. I can figure anything out. Yes, of course. Mm-hmm. And that turned into a 60-person, basically trash out, boarding up, anything that the bank asked you to do, we would do. So mowing lawns, lawn crews, trash out crews, winterizations of houses, changing locks. So he had that big business, and then it went away once the foreclosure market tightened up.
So that was just like a 08, 09.
It went to probably 2014. So I grew up.
Okay.
Actually, it went all the way to 2017 because we closed the doors right when I graduated college. So I grew up pretty much in that business. So he had the mindset of like, people are going to screw me over. I've done it before, this, that, and the other. So I come into the home inspection business and I'm trying to grow it. I'm trying to do all these things and press on the gas. And he's just in another phase of his life. So he's in a phase of his life where he's already almost put all his 5 kids through college. He's kind of easing up. And I got the whole world in front of me. Yeah. I'm ready to kind of take it over. So I hired a virtual assistant. I hired another inspector, and it grew the business, and it was great. He liked it, but it was another one of those businesses. The more jobs we got, the more we worked too. Yeah. So there wasn't a lever of like investing in real estate or flipping a house. It's just, okay, I was getting more jobs, and we're doing more work. Yeah. So I was killing my dad on that side too. So just it didn't align.
So what was like emotionally the hardest part about hiring, you guys feel like, for you? Like to actually make that first pull, like for you, the VA and the inspector, and then Admir, I'm curious who you hired first.
An office manager. That was like the first thing we needed because I needed that time. You know, once I started having everything kind of figured out for our commercial construction business, I'm like, this isn't where I'm best suited. Plus, I always started dabbling in the real estate at that point too. I think within like the first year of working with my dad when I lived Goodyear's, when I started, you know, my actual real estate journey. But an office manager, I need you to, you know, pay the bills. Basically what a VA can do for you now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, I had an office manager taught her how to start estimating bids a little bit and things like that. And then we hired an estimator now. So, you know, their jobs are completely separate. But yeah, it was scary because it was, you know, a decision that was left to me. I'm the little guy. My dad's just letting me figure it out, and I was worried as shit. I was like, Dad, I'm about to fuck up. I don't know if I'm going to hire the right person. Yeah. I don't know how to hire. You know, what documents do I need?
But he let you do it, right?
He let me do it.
That's the same.
And
thing
she's
for
still
me.
with us today. Yeah. We put her through school. She's our in-house CPA now.
Wow.
Oh, give her a shout out. Who is it?
Rachel Graham. She's awesome, dude.
Damn.
She's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah, I remember it was hard for me especially. So I went from, and I'll just call it out, cheating in college and like paying people to do my homework and knowing that's like a very wrong.
That's why you're an entrepreneur now.
In hindsight, yeah. And I remember it
you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Isn't that what they say?
That was, yeah, we said that plenty of times. And then it was really hard because it was like I was trained by the system. You can't do that. It's wrong. You need to do it yourself. Then I get into the business world. I'm playing by the rules of doing everything as Alex. And it seemed like clients were like, why aren't you hiring? Like everyone kind of seemed to want more. So did you feel like after that first hire, you were like, oh, I now see that this is also a skill set. Like I can get better at hiring.
It is, yeah. I mean, it just made me feel more comfortable too that, you know, like that was like the first big task. I, you know, was successful at it. So then, you know, everything else from there kind of got easy. And then it made it easier for me to hire too when, you know, it started with my personal real estate company, and hiring and firing is very easy to do now.
Yeah.
You got to do it first time. You got to get over it.
Do you have any like golden questions you use in every interview to like really, because we have like 2 or 3 things we do. I'm curious if you guys have any specific to really like field character.
Rachel does that now. I don't know. Rachel.
Hey, Rachel, give us an answer after. I'll put in the show notes. Yeah.
I should have an answer to that, but
for me, I just needed to know: do you have a valid driver's license? You know, and really, do you just have transportation? Eventually, it just came down to, I don't care if you even have an ID. Do you just have transportation? That was probably the golden rule, because guys would want to come to the shop and carpool. No.
Yeah.
I think one of the big things that, now that I think about it a little more, is asking them questions about what they've done in the past. And if they complain or talk shit about the person before or company before, that tells you a lot about their character. So that's one thing, especially like when I hire contractors too, that's a big thing, is I just think I listen to how they talk about other people.
Like where responsibility lies.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, oh, this guy didn't pay me this. And they just place blame on everybody else, when in reality, most of the time you just got to blame yourself first. That's a big thing I've learned just in entrepreneurship in general. You got to take a lot of the blame.
So maybe for any like contracting businesses out there, if someone were to be talking to either of you to, let's say, manage a flip or run on that, if they were to do that conversation and be like, yeah, actually, I really fucked up this guy's timeline. It was super embarrassing. Like I didn't get paid and I kind of get it. Like, would that make you want to hire them more or less?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If they told me that, yeah.
Yeah. Is that honesty in the market, or is that very rare to find?
Probably a little more rare, especially, I mean, because contracting, especially if we're going to just focus on that, it's a very lone wolfy, ego-y type business. These people are they're their own breed.
Yeah.
So, and especially with these young guys, they try and grow things so fast, and they've
not problem with a lot of them. Yeah.
They then kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, and they don't even know what's going on, so they just place blame on others, and it's the easy thing to do.
Yeah. So do you feel like in general with maybe, let's say, because another thing, I don't know if you guys follow this a lot, but I was listening to the guy who was on Dirty Jobs, and he said that between ages of like 25 and I think 54, there are about 11 million men who are perfectly healthy, not applying for jobs, don't have a job, and are reporting 40 hours or more of screen time per week in America.
Wow.
And this was a year ago. And so when I hear you guys talk about like the contractor issues, like, do you see that in the workforce? Like, is it actually hard to find bodies, or is it hard to find qualified people?
So if I'm talking my commercial side, where we're talking bricklayers, that's becoming tougher because it seems like to be a dying breed of a skill.
Okay.
To be a mason, who grows up and is taught to be a mason? Only a mason who probably has a father as a mason. Nobody else has really pitched that. But as far as, flipping and stuff, you got so many guys that say, I can do this, I can do that. Mm-hmm. And the quality lacks all over the place. So when you do find it, pay those guys fast, pay them well. Like, I like to try to, get invoices early in the week and pay at the end. Some of these guys, I have to bend the rule. As soon as they tell me they're done, I'm waiting on a guy to let me know he's done with my quartz countertop.
Yeah.
I'm paying them today at whatever point he texts me.
And so for people out there that maybe they're stuck, maybe they have a college degree, there's like no jobs on LinkedIn, for like a mason or even someone who does great labor like you're talking about, how much are these people making per year?
I don't know.
Let's do low end, high end.
We pay our masons 35 to 40 an hour that are really good. So
okay, and then let's look at something like if you're running, let's say, a small crew helping with Tommy or Admir's flips. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you think these guys are making per year compared to a normal salaried job?
40, 50, anywhere between 40 and 60. It depends how much they hustle too.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is there's actual opportunities out there. So if someone's, let's say, not doing well in the corporate world, or maybe their job is about to be automated by AI in the next 6 months, there are actual positions open, and you think there is enough demand in real estate that they could go that way.
Absolutely.
Especially HVAC. I mean, HVAC companies are being bought up by, hedge funds and private companies. So these are some targeted skills, and that's where I spend a lot of the money. I'm sure same with you. Electrician's costs, HVAC costs.
Absolutely.
Flooring, paint. If you want to get out there and just make some money, you don't have to know it all. Just learn how to paint, learn how to do flooring. Every house needs it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just become very good at that. Say, I only do paint and flooring. Mm-hmm. I will respect that. That's all you do? Perfect. Don't sell me on tile. Mm-hmm. Don't sell me on shit else. I know you're my paint and my flooring guy.
And do you guys feel like that's a bigger theme in entrepreneurship you've had to learn as well? Because I'm sure like shiny objects are probably everywhere for both of you, right? Where it's like, I have this opportunity, or I want you to hear about this. Like, how do you decipher like this is in line with my vision versus like, yeah, that might be an opportunity, it's just not mine today?
Every time I've stepped out of my lane, I get burnt. Like crypto when it was big.
Shit.
I got destroyed in crypto because it's
buy some crazy coins.
Yeah, and I just lost my ass, and just whether I got in a Ponzi scheme, I got in another coin that was horrible. Yeah, dude just got sentenced to.
Is this some guy from Columbus?
Yeah.
Okay.
He just got sentenced to I think it was 10 years at least, 10 years minimum. That's one of 5 counts, so he's gonna go to jail for life, like a $25 million Ponzi scheme. Damn. Yeah, so I got caught up in that because it just seemed so great.
The pitch was good.
The pitch was good, and I got paid one time, and it was like, whoa, these returns are insane, and then got all my money taken from me. And then you just learn that you can't be good at everything. And I think that's what young people now forget. Nobody has real career capital right now because they're bouncing from one thing to another and going around, and then you look back and you're in your 30s and you've done nothing well. You've dabbled in everything, but like for me, I was a home inspector for 5-6 years. I'm still licensed. Like that is a skill that cannot be taken from me.
Yeah.
If I lose my ass in the real estate side, I can still wake up and go generate money on that side. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. I'm curious because like for me, I've had a lot of coaches say the same thing. They're like, you're going to get a lot of these offers. And when I started my business, it was so freelance everything. Oh, you need a website. Oh, you want a landing page. But then I was like, I need to pick one thing and stick with it. So how have you guys, because I know you do more than one thing, right? Like you do wholesale and flips, same with you, and then obviously your dad's company. How do you manage maybe, let's say, 2 things going on that are similar and touch each other, but they are separate businesses?
There's synergy, between, I would say your company, same thing with the education company too, because you're teaching what you're doing. So I don't see it being difficult at all. I'm flipping, but I also have a construction company. It only helps.
Yeah.
So I don't have.
So you see them as they work together.
Oh, absolutely, because
Yeah.
it helped actually our construction company scale huge, because we can keep our guys busy all year round. You know, masonry work you can only do for so long when the weather's
Yeah.
good. If it's a real rainy day, you don't want to be out there. Sometimes it's too cold and jobs aren't tarped in, so you can't lay brick or don't even want to touch them because they're cold. So we just send guys to paint.
So as you grew, retention was actually easier.
Oh my God, 100%. Yep.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things is having the right people too, because we wholesale, we flip, we do rental properties, and we have the education companies. We have 4 businesses across the board, all in real estate investing. But I would not be wholesaling at scale if I didn't have my business partner. So I think especially you need somebody like a COO position that knows the business, and I'm all about bringing people up, starting in a certain role and building them up if they have the talent, instead of like going and poaching a COO. There's no right or wrong on that, but that's kind of how we build our business. And the way to scale it and control everything is give people the power, and you got to pay them a lot of money too.
Yeah. Like I was lucky, and Admir knows, like Katie runs all of our back end systems, like Zapier, ChatGPT, all of that.
Yep.
I don't touch. So what were the skills that you actually had to look for in an operator that maybe an entrepreneur wouldn't have?
I got lucky that I just met my business partner randomly, but I am super disorganized. I'm not good at systems. I never get in our CRM. I screw things up when I go in there. And he had went bankrupt by the time he was 23, maybe 23. Yeah, and he's 34 now. And we were both in the same spot when we met each other. We both had wholesaled a couple deals. We were both on this upward trajectory. We knew what we were doing, except he didn't have the network I had, and he had a sales background. So he just hit the phones as the acquisitions, and I would do the dispo. And as time went on, a lot of the things we learned from him going bankrupt really was kind of like our North Star for the business. So when I would come back from a mastermind, I'd be like, let's do this, this, this. And he'd be like, well, why?
Oh, he'd pop the balloon after the mastermind.
Yeah, and he'd be like, well, why would we do that? It's like, is it for our most of the time you're doing that because your ego. It's like, okay.
And you're like, you didn't see the presentation.
And everybody else is doing it. Everybody else is, it's like the crypto thing. Everybody else is doing it. Everybody's making money. It's like, well, everybody else isn't us, and they're not paying the bills.
Yeah.
So being able to have somebody that can pull back on you and have that power is, to me, extremely important.
Yeah.
It is, and it's like that. I mean, me and my dad bounce things off. Our uncle's a partner too, so it's easier when it is family.
Yeah.
You got your brothers involved too. Yep. And, everybody's in real estate, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, that's sweet. So I don't know. I don't know how people do it when it's not family. You know what I mean? Like Andy, that would just happen to work out. You guys were in the same spot. Yeah.
I just got lucky.
Just right place, right time, I guess.
So are both of your businesses key players mostly family?
Yeah, for me, yes.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So my business, everybody in my core business, so my wholesaling, flipping, rentals, nobody in my family but my mom works in that business. So my brothers, they work for my dad as the home inspection business, and they kind of do their own investing. And my mom is my realtor. So my mom quit her job as a teacher of 30 years, and she sells my real estate.
Dang, that's
so
sweet.
She quit her job, retired, and then she ran our Airbnb company for a little bit. That business, we shut the doors, and she makes way more money now.
And how old was she when she decided to stop teaching?
I think she's like 56 right now.
Mom? Yep, you heard that one. Okay, yeah, thank you for that. Sidebar. But it's interesting for me because at the time this airs, like I'm going to let it drop now. I got to call today. I've got the ring for Katie.
Nice.
So by the time she sees this, it'll be safe. But what's very interesting is like I trusted her because we had a pre-existing relationship. So I think there was a lot of trust built in of like, go build whatever you want, have the company card. But a challenge I definitely have had with others is like out of the family or out of that trust zone. Mm-hmm. I feel like I definitely have a higher level of paranoia of like micromanaging tendencies where I have to like sizzle back. So like, have you guys had that at all or no?
I actually take that back. We've hired a couple of Andy's family members. So our office manager, basically people that keeps our business together, Sammy is his wife's sister. So we do
that.
Yeah, Sammy's Andy's sister-in-law.
Cool.
So the people that are real close and touch the money, I think should have some sort of family tie, in my opinion.
Yeah, or potential ownership if you're going to trust them as a partner, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, our office manager, she's been with us. She trusts us just like we trust her. Yeah. So that's kind of who touches our money and me. I double check everything, reconcile.
Yeah.
That's important when you're making so much. You're having hundreds of thousands monthly moving around.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to have someone you trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're hiring an outside CFO.
Interesting.
So somebody that you like a bookkeeper, and then we're hiring right now like a fractional CFO that's going to basically spit out P&Ls, make sure that everything's going to the right spot, and like look at projections, things like that.
Yeah, and that'll give you probably a lot more confidence in just how
Absolutely.
you're running everything.
Because I mean, I'm just a nightmare. I don't really look at a lot of.
You
those
how
things.
many unread emails you have?
You don't even want to know.
Oh, he's one of those.
7,000 something.
65,000 or
Oh,
something.
okay, yeah,
Let me
way
see.
more.
He's like, oh, I read that the
It's
other
a
day.
lot. A lot of texts, a lot of emails.
Yeah,
They don't even pop up anymore. That's how many.
still
there
The
are.
phone just knows. He's not
Yeah.
gonna look at it.
yeah.
I don't
That's
even know.
terrible.
I guess
way
the
too
other
many.
people that we had that for our construction site that we need to trust is our foreman. That's what helps us scale and kind of sleep at night. I don't have to be there. These guys know how to read blueprints. They know how to set the course, and our guys just follow the lead.
Yeah.
So those are guys. Without them, we wouldn't be as big as we are.
And on the inverse, how do you think you guys have been able to get people to trust you? Because like the education play is, I mean, very fascinating to me. I've had several people suggest it. To me, it still feels shiny object. I see the value 100% for people that run it and have systems there. But how did you go through that in your head of like, obviously you're making your own money, you're doing your thing correctly, but people, I'm assuming, were like, can we get coffee all the time? And you're like, I can't do this anymore.
Well, there's two things that social media has done for me as far as the trust goes. Number one is your vibe attracts your tribe. So most of my other employees that we've hired, team members, they've come from either my networking events inside of my community, our coaching program, or just come to our networking events. So those are so they see us, they've been around us, and that attracts you. So we don't really go headhunt people.
Yeah.
They end up coming to us. And then two, the biggest thing that make people trust you is just being real and sharing your losses. To me, like if I watch some big entrepreneur or flipper and they're like, I've never lost money, I'm just like, okay, well, there's two. You're either just completely lying or you're not doing the volume
doing
you
enough,
claim.
yeah.
Right? So
The only two options.
the only two options.
Yeah.
So you just got to be careful what you listen to and what you watch. And you just can't fall into like, oh, that dude's wearing a Rolex, I want the same thing. Like it's got to be deeper than that.
Yeah, how did you, because I'm sure in the beginning it's harder than now, right? But like, did you ever have times where you're fighting with like your media team and you're like, this is too much to share? Maybe we dial it back. Or were you from the get-go like, no, if I'm going to rip this Band-Aid off, I'm going to be 100%?
Yeah, because one, it's in perpetuity, and you won't like the mindset I had when I was around social media was once I started, I can't stop. Like this is not going away, and this is a commitment I'm making, and I don't want to get into a position where I look back in 2 years, I'm like, the brand I just built is not me, and this is like I've just now created a reality that I can't escape.
Yeah.
So just being yourself all the time and even doing it on camera, to me, is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
People miss that mark, and it just seems so simple to me. But people just want to be somebody they're not. When a camera turns on, they won't cuss, they won't drink a beer. It's like,
Yeah, news reporter comes out.
I'm a Midwest guy from Ohio. Like I'm gonna hang out and drink beer. I'm gonna maybe some curse words.
Yeah.
And that's
That's
how
what I
I am on
noticed
camera.
about you actually too, because I cuss. I don't know, dropped a couple cuss words, but
Yeah.
before you and I ever really had any dialogue, I watched you for a while, and I'm like, this guy's doing a lot of flipping. He seems super down to earth, and you started asking for money. You were starting to raise money on social media, and I remember it was like 25,000 at the time. I think you were just asking for. So I reached out to you, but I didn't want to lend just yet, and I just kept watching. I was like, dude, I don't see any faults with this guy. Met you, and I think the first time I lent you some money was, I don't know, probably 250,000.
Yeah.
Since then,
And when you say didn't see any faults, like what were your indicators? Was it frequency? Was it I like how he's talking?
he was constantly posting, so that let me know he was doing the volume, but he was also sharing losses. Two things: if you're out here saying I'm making all this money all the time, lying, you're either not doing as much, or something is not right. You know what I mean? Everything you were sharing was truths, and I gravitated towards that.
Yeah, and we were talking before the show started of like, what were the first phones we had? And I think we were joking like, when can you give kids a phone? But for both of you, I think you were probably like, how old were you when you had your first, let's call it iPhone? Not phone, but just iPhone.
I had the 3G whenever that came out. I don't know.
That's OG.
Shit, I still have it.
Mine was 10th or 11th grade.
Something like that.
So to think about what you first used an iPhone for, to think now, like obviously relationships are happening and how much dollars are flowing through that piece of plastic. Like
That
where
amazes
do
me
you
all the
guys
time.
see it
Insane.
being? Yeah, where do you see it being in 10 years? Because if we look back, we're really talking about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
From
That
it
is
just
insane to figure
existing
out.
to now.
I mean, I'm signing docs, checking wires are coming in, all sorts of things. It's a lot of times on the toilet too, just to be transparent. And I really think about that. I'm like, holy shit, literally, I'm making money, and it's crazy.
Did you plan that before this?
No, you asked the right question. That's all.
All right,
it is.
hey, I'll
It's a
take
good
it.
and a bad thing though too. I think that I find
Yeah.
myself scrolling and just like sometimes not even getting the stuff I need to get done. So being very cognizant of when you're using or abusing it, right?
Yeah.
And that's I think that's going to be a big challenge that comes out for a lot of people, because somebody told me the other day they went to the BMV, and back in the day you would go you would go talk to somebody next to you, and everybody just goes in, they're doing this.
No
So I think
conversations at
people are
all.
losing their social skills, and it's kind of scary.
Yeah, like the hardest thing for me, I sound soft when I say it, but like the biggest threat to our business is that I have to be on it. Like I have to check where it is. And it, literally in the middle of like this went live on Instagram to I'm switching to Facebook. I'm going to watch the skateboarding video. I need to know if he lands the trick. And then 45 minutes is gone.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I paid what I felt like was a lot of money for coaching. I did the introductory call, and their first assignment was a dopamine fast. I'm like, I just paid this guy, at the time it was $10K, to make money, and he's telling me not to look at my phone or any tech for 24 hours. And I was pissed. Like, I couldn't believe he said this, but I did it. This was 2 years ago. And so I did it from a Saturday night to a Sunday night. No phone, no TV, no music in the car.
Oh, man.
And what was crazy is it took me back to the last time I was grounded when I was 17. I remembered the day. And it hit me that for that entire time period, I've actually not been off this thing. And so what it did is it actually, one, like fully reset my brain, but two, I tried to be way more intentional of like making sure it is the wires, or it is I'm only making content, or I'm posting content, not consuming content. Mm-hmm. And it's very fascinating for me to hear that, you know, even at you guys' level, that's still a struggle, right?
Yeah, because you said 45 minutes. I mean, sometimes you can just get caught and 2 hours pass by, and you're like, this is terrible.
Yeah. And if you were to think about that as an outside threat that wasn't a phone, it's like, hey, this thing's going to make Tommy not work for 2 hours today. You'd be like, get that away from us.
Yeah, now that I'm a dad, too, I mean, you could probably relate to this, too. I'll sit there, and he's hanging out right there watching me, and I'm just going to scroll on my phone. I put it down. I look at him like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing on here that's more important
than
than, like, actually hanging out with him right here. That's the only thing he probably wants to do.
Yeah.
It's tough because sometimes you have to be like, there's fires that blow up, you know, title or something, and you need this deal to close. And I see it all the time too. He's right there, dad, and I'm just like, kid, I need to do this. Like, I need to do this because this is what buys your strawberries, your blueberries, your.
So how do you? Because we were talking about before the show, and I mean, I think it is interesting. How do you see a world where you know your kids are going to grow up around some crazy technology? Because I think probably one of the strongest skills you could both say you have in business is your ability to just communicate with humans, right? Mm-hmm. So in a world where that might become more rare and more rare, how do you think you can create kids that are going to still have that human side of them without getting addicted?
Lead by example. You know, I have to, that's why we don't do a lot of screen time. My wife and I, especially her, she's with them majority of the day, like no screen time.
Yeah.
You know, and when I get home, that's something that I'm intentionally trying way harder just to put it down. So, you know, as he gets older, I don't know what technology is going to do. I live for today. I don't know what tomorrow brings or what's going to come out. I don't care. You know, we're just going to learn, pivot, but that human interaction, him socializing, being around other kids, you know, that's something that we're going to be big on.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah. So one thing I always like to ask people before we end the show is it's called the Figuring It Out podcast. I started this to show people two things. One, we're all kind of figuring it out. We don't know what we're doing. But two, even guys like yourself that may look like they're doing well are still struggling with something at every point in time. So where you guys are both at right now, it's October of 2024. What are you figuring out in your business or in life right now that's hard?
Balance. You know, with the family, I'd like more time with them. But then again, my time is still, you know, used to create businesses and generate more money. You know, the problem is I could quit now and be okay, but it's just a fire in me that knows I'm meant for so much more, you know, that wants more for my son's son too. So I'm thinking further ahead because I don't care about none of the stuff for me. Kind of like my dad, he still drives a beat up truck. I don't care. Yes, I have a truck. I have a nice car. But I live way below my means, and it's just, I don't know. That's just where my mindset is legacy. You know, you named your company Legacy for a reason, and that's a big key thing for me.
Yeah. So just getting your time back.
Get my time back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like what he said. I mean, I've been wired my whole life to wake up, at least watching my dad wake up 4 a.m., work your ass off all day. Mm-hmm. So mine is figuring out how to be extremely intentional with my time, because another one of my friends, they're in Florida, the Mathis twins. If you're ever watching this, before I had my son, they were talking to me. They said, "Hey, when you have your son, when you're at the office, you're choosing one or the other. You're choosing to be with him, or you're choosing to work. So being super intentional when you're choosing one or the other, and being there for both sides, because they're both extremely important. So figuring out to give away, like, because everybody feels good writing off tasks and getting little things done. So figuring out how to do the higher dollar things and being okay with when you're not working, then you did the right things when you were working.
Yeah.
100%, man. That's another big one for me because I like doing some of the things that I do.
Yeah.
Do I have to do them is the question. I don't. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to go just pop in on this house just to show people something that's getting
Right.
done. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
right.
Like, I don't have to do that. I can stay home.
Yeah. All right. And so for everyone watching, if they want to get connected to either of you two, how can they do it?
Instagram, Admir Bektic Official. Same thing for YouTube. And Facebook is just Admir Bektic. So, easiest places.
Yeah, mine's mostly Instagram, TommyHarr05. And yeah, shoot me a DM. I respond to everybody personally. Just make sure you ask me a good question. You'll get a good
Yeah, I
answer
heard
back.
you're a little slow to respond to some people.
Sometimes.
I saw that.
Yeah, sometimes.
All right, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I will see you next week.